Alright guys, today's video is about the British Mandate in Jerusalem. If you don't know, the British were here for about 30 years and they really left their mark on the city, founding a lot of the new city part of the town. So I'm going to take you around Jerusalem and see some of the most important British places and the buildings that they built during their 30 years here. This is a fitting place to start our trip because this was the exact place where on December 9th, 1917, the Ottomans, or the mayor of Jerusalem, surrendered to the British forces and Jerusalem officially became a part of the British Empire. So behind me is the monuments. We're going to do a little walk around. The Ottoman surrender of Jerusalem to the British was actually kind of a complicated affair. Every time the Ottomans tried to surrender the city, the British deemed it not fancy enough, not formal enough, and made them redo it. I think they made them redo it overall 4 different times until they were satisfied. This monument is for one of those 4 times. I'm just not sure exactly which one. One of the major things the British did was they developed the modern postal system, and many of those postal boxes are still here and located in Jerusalem. When the Israelis ended up taking over West Jerusalem from the British, they grinded off the symbol of the British king, which was GR, which was George Rex, King George, in reference to King George V. For some reason, they didn't like the symbol of King George V, the royal ensign, the GR, on the boxes, so they grinded it off. But on the east side of Jerusalem, which was taken over by Jordan, they didn't do that. So when East Jerusalem in 1967 was taken over by the Israelis, they inherited a bunch of these British mailboxes that still have the symbol. This used to be the main post office during the British Mandate period. It's on Jaffa Street, and it was designed by a famous architect named Austin St. Barb Harrison, who is well known for fusing Western and Middle Eastern elements into some really great architectural designs. It's still used today as a post office by the Israeli Postal Service. This is King George Street and Jaffa Street. It's one of the major intersections in Jerusalem, and King George Street was built by the British, named after the British King George V. Over here is the old British Barclays Bank. You can still see the logo of Barclays on top of the windows. And the building is full of bullet holes, I guess remnants from the 1948 war. I think this also used to be a major square in the city. Maybe it was called Allenby Square, but not anymore, after General Allenby. This is the Jerusalem YMCA. It was built by the same architect as the Empire State Building in New York City. Right across the street from the YMCA is the famous King David Hotel. One of the reasons it's so famous is because it was used as a command post by the British military at some point, I think in the 1930s, and it was bombed. The whole right wing, or one of the wings, was destroyed. The bombing was carried out by a Zionist extremist group, but it looks like it's all been repaired since. Here's a pillbox that was built by the British to defend the southern road from Jerusalem. Between the years 1936 and 1939, there was an event called the Arab Revolt in Palestine. During these years, local Palestinians led an armed uprising against British rule, demanding Arab independence and the end of a policy of open-ended Jewish immigration. To defend against these armed threats, the British built some things that are called pillboxes at the end of major roads to defend the major arteries going throughout Jerusalem. Now we're at another one of my favorite places in Jerusalem. It's the Rockefeller Museum, formerly known as the Palestine Archeological Museum. It was built by the British in the 30s to house findings from the 20s and the 30s that were found in archaeological digs. It's another building built by the British architect Austin St. Barb Harrison, who was the guy who built the post office and some other great buildings. It's really an incredible building. They have some great collections, even though it's quite small, and it's free, which is amazing. This place has a really nice courtyard. Looks like someone machine gunned this side. Tons and tons of bullet holes. I always like these original urinals from the British Mandate era. They're probably from the 20s or the 30s or the 40s. Original, including taps, or one of the taps. Original turnstiles. So unfortunately, this building, the former headquarters of the British High Commissioner to the Mandate of Palestine, I was not able to get access to for this video. Now it's used by the UN, I think UNDOF, UN Division of Forces, or one of those other UN organizations. I had once visited a couple years ago when I used to have a student who worked for one of the UN organizations, and she gave me a tour. When I tried to come for this video and get some new footage, they said that I had to have a connection, someone who would let me in. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that, so I've just provided a bunch of pictures for the purposes of this video. It was also designed by Austin State Barb Harrison, who was an awesome architect. Now on to the war cemeteries. Something that a lot of people don't know is that when the British used to be a huge empire, they used to recruit tons and tons of Indian soldiers, or people that are from modern-day India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. In the First World War, there were over 1 million people from British India fighting in the British Army, and I think 74,000 were killed in the war, a crazy number. This is the British War Cemetery on the Mount Scopus, which is a cemetery for people who fell in the Palestine campaign, World War I. This cemetery contains the graves of about 2,500 soldiers from the British Empire, not only from England, but also from Australia, New Zealand, India, Egypt, South Africa, and the British West Indies. What's interesting about the cemetery is that there's also a section of some Germans who were killed in action during World War I, as well as Turkish soldiers, and there's a section for Jewish soldiers who were killed during the war as well, from the British Army. There's also one famous grave here that's from a British soldier whose name was William Shakespeare. No connection to the playwright from the 16th century. And here I have with me a genuine Brit to share what he thinks about the British Mandate. What do you say about the British Mandate?
Yeah, it's pretty terrible, like the rest of what we've done. Sorry for England, everybody. Sorry for England, everybody.